everyone. Welcome to the Tax Talk with GCC Tax. Today we have Howard Hull with us. Howard is the Group Tax Director at AlFuttaim Group. He has been advising businesses on international taxation for over 25 years and was previously a tax partner at EY based in Geneva, Dubai and London. He has been in the region for over 12 years and is an honorary member of the UAE chapter of International Fiscal Association. Howard was also recently recognized in the 2020 European Tax Awards, where he was shortlisted for Tax Director of the Year. He is a certified Swiss tax expert and holds a master's in law from University of Geneva. So let's welcome the man behind all tax decisions in AlFuttaim Group, Howard Hull. Howard, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anna.
Howard, before we talk about tax, could you tell us little about AlFuttaim Group? I understand AlFuttaim was recently listed by Forbes as one of the most powerful family business in the UAE.
Certainly. Well, the AlFuttaim Group is certainly a big organization, many businesses, many functions, and over 30 geographies. The key 5 business areas are automotive, retail, real estate. We've also got financial services and healthcare. The healthcare sector have been doing a lot over the last few months, as you can well imagine, with 4 drive-through COVID-19 testing stations and a number of different initiatives to help the local community there. But in addition to those 5, there's all sorts of other businesses, from aviation, travel, logistics, education. There's a bank, there's one of the largest, if not the largest, insurance company in the region. So really quite a diverse and large portfolio of companies for the AlFuttaim Group. Yeah.
So when did you join AlFuttaim Group? Can you take us through your journey in AlFuttaim?
So, yeah, certainly. I mean, I was lucky enough to be advising AlFuttaim when I was a partner in one of the professional service providers. But it was in 2014 I joined to set up the tax function, and I actually joined as an independent consultant. I was an independent consultant for some 4 years. And it was only in 2018, so 2 years ago, which when I sort of came on full time, it was just, it became, obviously with everything going on in the region, a full-time job.
Right. So can you share your perspective on the tax landscape in this region?
Certainly. Well, I think we could all agree that the region's going through a fundamental shift in taxation. I mean, it's a tax transformation. We've had a lot of new initiatives just over the last 2 or 3 years. Think about VAT, think about excise, think about CBCR, think about economic substance rules, and the list goes on. And that's even before we start talking about all the changes to the existing taxes. Think about zakat, corporate income tax, personal income tax. Think about FATCA, CRS, customs, withholding tax. You know, there's been so much going on at the moment, and obviously this has had a huge impact on the landscape of tax advisors in the region, where it has been mushrooms over the last 3 years.
Yes, and it's an ever-changing game now, actually.
Yes, certainly. We have to keep on our toes, that's for sure.
Exactly. So how has AlFuttaim been handling all these developments so far?
Well, we've been keeping our finger on the pulse, making sure we're very, very close to not only our advisors, but the government institutions and ministries of finance across the region. That's one thing, but more importantly, we've been trying to see how group taxes has an impact on businesses. So every time there's a change, there's obviously the reactive change that, you know, how do we comply? How do we do our very best to do the right thing from a compliance reporting perspective. But just as importantly is how do we make sure that our businesses are ready for the change? Just think about an increase in tax. What are the consumer behaviors going to be before and after that change? What is our pricing policy? Sometimes right down to the level of each different item that we're selling. What is our inventory policy? Are we using this as an opportunity to liquidate some of our older inventory, or do we have to bring in new inventory? So obviously supply chains get implemented, logistics. So more than just compliance and keeping up, we try and stay one step ahead so that our businesses can make the best out of a difficult situation.
I'm sure, but what about the current situation, Howard? Like, what was your response to this COVID-19 situation?
Well, like everybody, it took us by surprise, but we moved very quickly. Now, for a large organization, I was quite impressed by how quickly we managed to move. From a tax perspective, we had to pivot just like everybody else. So we had a webcast mid-March to our international tax community, where we said, right, from the next 3 months, we're going to focus on 3 things. One is continuous compliance, 2, fiscal stimulus, and 3 is cash protection. And I'm sure now, looking back, that's no surprise to anybody. But at the time, we were very keen on being some of the first movers in that area.
I'm sure. So when you talk about continuous compliance here, what were the key hurdles you had to overcome?
So continuous compliance, I mean, when everybody is working remotely, one of the key concerns I had was, are people going to be able to continue their compliance and reporting in an optimal fashion? So really, it's really about data sourcing. So we're talking about contingency plans in order to make sure that the record to report processes are sustainable in that environment. But also tax audits. We have, just like every large business, a lot of tax audits going on, and those have deadlines. And sometimes in some of the jurisdictions, the correspondence comes through snail mail rather than modern technology. And if people aren't actually in the office, you've got to have a system to make sure you pick up the letters. Now, this is really basic stuff, but it's stuff that we take for granted in a non-COVID-19 environment. And then on business, on continuous compliance, I mean, basically it's keeping up with the business developments. I mean, things like, businesses, obviously, they've shifted more towards e-commerce. So logistics has been very, very important for us, so supply chains, obviously. But also things that we wouldn't normally worry about, the so-called stealth expats, these expats that are working in locations other than their country.
Right.
Of employment. There's the cash repatriations, debt restructuring. So a lot of new business developments that we just have to sort of make sure that we can comply with those and support as much as possible from a tax perspective.
I see. And what about the fiscal stimulus measures? I mean, how do you cope up with the ever-changing tax relief measures in this region?
Well, Andrew, you're absolutely right. They are ever changing. I mean, there's new tax measures coming out every single day. So what we started doing, and this again is mid-March, we started categorizing all the different fiscal stimulus measures. And that wasn't just tax. We started on tax, but then we realized that actually, since we were doing quite well on tax, we actually took over and did it for government subsidies and other private subsidies. And so group tax was going around on a weekly basis, communicating to all businesses, all geographies, where the fiscal stimulus measures were coming into place and how we could benefit from them. And then obviously from that weekly reporting, we had feedback on a monthly basis, and we've had a webcast recently with our international community again to give the feedback on what's happened. Now, interestingly there, Anu, no surprises. Most of the benefits are cash flow benefits, so they're temporary in nature. A lot of those were to do with, the bank loan restructurings. From a tax perspective, a lot of that was filing extensions in the UAE or Qatar, places like that. But then, on top of the temporary cash flow benefit, there's obviously the longer term or the permanent P&L impact. And a lot of that is non-tax related. Right. Typically rental rebates, salary support schemes, grants, utility bill reductions, this sort of thing. But on the tax side as well, a lot of that has been, withholding tax exemptions, customs duty rebates. Think about the 20% rebate of customs duties in Dubai, or property tax rebates, places like Singapore and Hong Kong. A myriad of different things going on, not just on the cash flow, but also on the permanent P&L impact. And it has been a challenge because obviously the jurisdictions have not been coordinated in this. There's been some guidance by the OECD on this, but people have really done, or governments have really done all sorts of things. Look at the UAE, you saw 2 weeks ago, there are 227 initiatives already in the UAE alone. So a big challenge, but yes, we've took the bull by the horns and got on with it.
Okay, I see. And everybody's talking about cash protection, like as you mentioned, this is the topic. So how do you make an impact on businesses in this area?
Yeah, cash protection. So it's all around cash protection. You're absolutely right, Anu. So most of the cash protection initiatives came out of those bank loan restructurings, which are more from a treasury perspective.
Yeah.
From a tax perspective, though, obviously, you can work on the AP and the AR, make sure you accelerate tax refunds on the AP side, making sure that invoices are processed as quickly as possible, making sure that refund positions where you have zero-rated businesses, which we have a few of, we accelerate the refunds. And then on the accounts receivable side, obviously you have the delayed tax payments. You can make sure that the invoice and payment is as close as possible within the limits of what's allowed by the law and the executive regulations, of course. But on cash protection, then also you've just got to make sure that you make the most out of exceptional transactions. And there's a lot of those these days, a lot more, bad debt relief, more aborted transactions, compensation payments, and this sort of thing. So you just have to make sure that you have a clean house as far as cash protection, accounts payable, accounts receivable.
I see. Right. So, Howard, what's next for your team at AlFuttaim? I mean, what will be your area of focus going forward now?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think we're out of the woods just yet on this, the COVID-19. Okay. I mean, there's a big difference between the health of humans and the health of the economy. It's going to take quite a while. So we're going to continue along those three lines: continuous compliance, fiscal stimulus, and cash protection for the time being. But, when you talk about fiscal stimulus, you've got to remember someone's got to pay for this, Anna. So coming out of COVID-19, we're going to see more taxes. We're going to see more reporting, and we're going to see more audits, more taxes. We've already seen some of the outliers, early movers in this area. Think about KSA, Saudi Arabia, just increased or tripled their VAT rates. Their customs rates have increased. Think about Oman, introducing excise taxes soon and fast-tracking VAT. More reporting, well, you know, not just making sure that we can report the record to report is correctly, you know, you have a nice audit trail, but also things like ESR and CBCR. These are all new to our region. So a lot more reporting, and then more audits. Obviously, people are going to be wanting, governments are going to be wanting to make sure everybody's making a good faith effort to get it right.
Right. The Harvard, would you like to elaborate a little bit more about, you know, you mentioned more taxes. Do you want to say more on that?
Well, frankly, I know it's far too early for any government to increase taxes at the moment. So it will come. But anyone that's already doing it now is going against the curve. So yes, there will be more taxes. I wouldn't like to guess what kind of taxes those would be, and I hope I'm right in saying that it'll be a long time before we do have more taxes. But unfortunately, we live in the real world. I think what tax directors like myself can do in order to prepare for the uncertainty to come is just make sure that businesses and the taxation of those businesses are doing the right thing. And that basically means that whether you're talking about the holding, the financing, or the operating of businesses, you know, you're not flying close to the limit of what's acceptable from a BEPS perspective, from a tax perspective in general. And so if you're doing the right thing from a holding, financing, and operating perspective, you're probably going to be okay whatever's thrown your way.
I am sure. I am sure. Any piece of advice, Harvard, you would like to give to young professionals who, you know, who want to make a career in the field of taxation, especially in this region?
Well, if I was starting over, definitely having a service provider train you up in a number of different areas is a very, very good start. And making sure that when you're with that service provider, you're not focused on one area or another, that you have the luxury of seeing the kaleidoscope of different taxes we have to deal with every day. But I know the other piece of advice would be if at some stage within the first 5 years of a career, a tax professional has the opportunity of spending some time on the other side, in-house, okay, working for a tax director, whether it's 6 months, a year and a half, then you see what it's like to be within an organization.
I am sure.
And I often say that, you know, my advice might have been slightly different. In fact, it would definitely have been different if I'd have known then what I know now.
Okay. Harvard, thank you for these insights, and thank you so much for taking out time for this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu, and thank you for letting me share my thoughts.
Thank you, Harvard.